Okay, I know this is clickbait, but let's be honest. I don't like it when product descriptions, when you're buying something that's expensive, aren't really accurate. And something that really got me is on Wayfair's website for this specific sauna that I just purchased. It has a cord measurement of 10 inches long. Now, what I suspect happened was someone read 10 with the one line after it, insinuating 10 feet, and interpreted that as 10 inches because they weren't familiar with the feet versus inches designation, and they accidentally then typed it into this. What they should have done is just kept it in its original formatting and left the little line and let the user interpret what that measurement unit was, because this made me wait to install. This requires a 120 10 amp dedicated receptacle, so it's a specific type of plug. So I just ran the wiring for this in, which I just had to wait a little bit longer because I didn't know where the receptacle in the room would actually end up going, which actually is something that I was going to do anyway, but I still think it's important that manufacturers and or distributors know that. So just finished the installation of this thing. And one thing that I would recommend if you're buying one of these types of infrared saunas that you put in your home, these are indoor units, but this is obviously a manufactured from wood product. And while I was handling it, I could tell that there was a very fine powder of the dust from the sanding that happens of the parts. So before I actually turn this on, I used my little DeWalt leaf blower, which I use for literally everything, and I just blew the inside of it out. I vacuumed everything that I could, and then I used the blower to blow it out, and this thing filled up. You could barely almost see through it. There was so much dust inside it. And had I not done that and just used the sauna, when you go into that belabored breathing from using the sauna, you'll end up with that asphyxiation of the dust particles, which you don't want. So obviously, I just blew it out. I just turned the fan off so this video wouldn't have the fan noise, but then I put a fan in here just exhausting all of the air out of it. But otherwise, let me show you what I've done here so far. So it's got a nice little magnetic return door, and I did put the 20 amp receptacle up there. This was done through one of those wire, basically, what are they called? Snakes that you use, the little extension pieces. I just did a YouTube short about that last night, so if you looked at the channel, you'll be able to find that. This was the entry port that I cut. This drills down to downstairs to go to the panel, and then I snaked up from there up to here. But I was expecting to try and keep it close to the unit anyway, but if it was 10 inches, that would have been a requirement. But inside this top panel, you can see there's a big spool of wire there. It is 10 feet of wiring. Additionally, it says LED on the website, but this is a red light therapy LED, which folks were asking about specifically, and it does say it right on the box. But again, their website doesn't exactly display that information. So I would definitely say there are some really cool certified sauna. There's a bunch of Facebook groups, but certified sauna on Facebook is just the best website for this, or chat room group for this. These are people that are like avid users and want to share information on the topic. So if you're in the market for infrared saunas, there's a ton of information, and there's a ton of people that have the leaning tendency to run away from EMF, which obviously, yeah, I think it is important to limit the amount of EMF you can be exposed to. This is a limited EMF, but I think it's rated at 8 is what it says. Yeah, EMF rating is 8. You can see right there. EMF is 8. But again, my phone is probably closer to me. It emits more. And since this is my workstation for every day that I sit in front of, the amount of EMF that I'm exposed to for long periods of time is exceptionally high anyway. And I don't have a third arm yet, nor do I get headaches or some weird negative effects from it. If you live in a modern lifestyle, you're probably going to be exposed to lots of EMF. So let's just be honest with ourselves, and you can go all wild and get the zero EMF and go, really into it, or you can get one of these limited EMF ones, which you're only spending 20 minutes a day in your sauna. It's probably going to be no real problem to you as the user, and they're way more inexpensive. These are really, really complicated to build in tight spaces like this. I actually had to put a ladder inside on the floor and then a ladder behind the unit. There are clips on the back of this, and this fit dimensionally exactly into this spot. I'll show you some of those clips right here. These little clips come around and they pin the panels together. So even these ones were difficult to do because of this positioning. But obviously, if you, where there's a will, there's a way, as my grandfather would always say. So I made the little trek over to the back, clipped all the clips together, and then climbed up over and then stepped over the wall onto this ladder, and then came back and then put all the other pieces in place. It's a fairly quick setup. Just make sure that you understand that if you do need this type of receptacle, you need to make sure that you either can do that yourself. Don't advise doing electrical work if you're not very, very well educated on that topic. And I've seen people say that getting a single 20 amp pull was about $1,500 to have their electrician do. If you do not go that route, most of the saunas that are in that space of the 120 volt but 15 amp, so your average receptacle like these, which actually look different. The one for the 120 with the 20 amp has a little line off to the side there, just so that that type of plug can't plug into these. Now, if you're going to do that, $1,500 additionally on this would nearly double the cost of the sauna, but their ability to get hot is limited based on the amount of energy that they can pull. So you'll have to do a little bit of calculus. Maybe you know someone who can help with your electric work, or maybe you want to do some DIY and learn it yourself. I've done quite a bit of electrical work. This is the first time I've ever run something directly into a panel. So I just went through NEC, the National Electric Code, read all of the requirements that I had to do for the gauging, for the distance, and all of the things in between. I've already patched it back up. I'll show you the downstairs end of what that looks like as well. In the middle of puttying, actually, sorry for that high speed down the stairs adventure. This was done when we moved in. Still haven't painted this, and I'm glad I didn't. They had to rerun some of the gauged wires for this sub panel. Weren't big enough for the loads. This is where I punched out and dropped from the upstairs. That room up there comes in here, and then I ran that cable, the 12-2 Romex or 12 gauge 2 wire, not the 3 wire. 3 wire would be for light switches or for 220 applications. So a 12-2 Romex that ran from here and then just dropped into the panel. And then I did it in purple because that was the only Sharpie I had. So naturally, leave it to me to make it cooler than it needs to be. But that is my 20 amp receptacle, which is now listed as the sauna. Make sure if you do put anything in your service panel that you make sure you label it as a requirement. But all in all, it was very easy to do. You just have to be mindful that all of this has to be de-energized. You have to shut the main breaker off. Do not attempt to play with electricity when it's on. Make sure you know what you're doing, and it's really not that difficult. But all things said and done, it was a really cool, simple project, and now I have a sauna in a giant unused closet upstairs. So let me know what you think. What are your ideas around saunas and DIY?